No one noticed Star Trek Picard Season 3 subtly set up USS Enterprise D's return. One of the first scenes in Star Trek Picard Season 3 sets up the return of the USS Enterprise D. Picard Season 3 reunited the original cast of Star Trek The Next Generation for one last galaxy-saving mission. With its nostalgia-filled story involving a changeling infiltration, a Borg invasion, and the surprise son of Admiral Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, and dear Beverly Crusher, Gates McFadden, Star Trek Picard Season 3 proved to be a resounding success. But this epic reunion would not have been complete without their beloved ship, the Enterprise D. In Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 6, The Bounty, Admiral Picard seeks out assistance from his former chief engineer, Commodore Geordi LaForge, LeVar Burton. Now working as the head curator at the Fleet Museum, LaForge eventually agrees to help his former crewmates save the galaxy yet again. At the end of Star Trek Picard Season 3's penultimate episode, Vox, Geordi reveals that he has been working on a pet project for the last 20 years, rebuilding and restoring the USS Enterprise D, which was destroyed in Star Trek Generations. This a welcome surprise, but the return of Picard's starship Enterprise was actually foreshadowed at the very beginning of Star Trek Picard Season 3. Jean-Luc's subtle hint of USS Enterprise D's return in Star Trek Picard Season 3 explained after an initial glimpse of Beverly Crusher and her son, Jack Crusher, Ed Spaliers, aboard the SS Elios XII. Star Trek Picard Season 3 is premiere cuts to the retired Admiral Picard at his family's vineyard in France. As Jean-Luc and Laris, Orla Brady, pack up the chateau for their planned off-world, Picard reminisces about his time on the USS Enterprise D. A large painting of the ship hangs above Picard's fireplace, and Jean-Luc remarks that the Enterprise D may not have been his first love, but she was certainly my favorite. Picard remarks that he should give the painting to Geordi LaForge, as he's currently running the Fleet Museum. Laris comments that Geordi would love that. Obviously, the audience doesn't realize it at the time, but Star Trek Picard Season 3 plants the seed for the Enterprise D's return with this big but subtle hint. Geordi, of course, is the one who rebuilds the Enterprise D at the Fleet Museum, bringing the story of the Star Trek The Next Generation crew full circle. The Enterprise D ends up being vital in the fight against the Borg, as Picard Season 3 delivers a much bigger moment for Picard's iconic ship than a look at a painting. Throughout Star Trek The Next Generation's 7 seasons, the USS Enterprise D was just as much of a character as its crew members. The Galaxy-class starship became home not only for the characters on the show, but also for many of TNG's viewers. While Star Trek Picard Season 3 could have reunited the TNG crew without their ship, it undoubtedly would have felt like something was missing. Jean-Luc Picard and his crew saved the galaxy numerous times with the Enterprise D, and the ship's destruction in Star Trek Generations felt like the death of a beloved character. As the chief engineer, Geordi LaForge had a particular love for the USS Enterprise D, and it makes perfect sense that he would rebuild the Galaxy-class starship. The return of the Enterprise D in Star Trek Picard's Vox was an emotional moment for the characters, and likely for many viewers as well. It was the perfect way to provide Picard and his crew with the proper send-off Star Trek Nemesis failed to give them. After its final mission, the USS Enterprise D found a home back at the Fleet Museum, where Geordi will continue to look after it and keep it mission-ready just in case. Star Trek Picard Season 3 was a love letter to the Next Generation era, packed with nostalgia, emotional farewells, and gripping storylines. While much of the season focused on new character arcs and the looming threat of the changelings, one significant element remained hidden in plain sight: the subtle setup for the return of the USS Enterprise D. This iconic starship, a hallmark of 90s Star Trek, made a triumphant reappearance in the final episodes. However, the groundwork for this revival was meticulously woven throughout the season, often going unnoticed by even the most ardent fans. The return of the Enterprise D wasn't a random fan service moment, it was carefully and thoughtfully foreshadowed. The clues leading to its reappearance were masterfully inserted into key moments, building a slow crescendo that only became clear in retrospect. Understanding how Picard managed this makes the ultimate reunion with the Enterprise D all the more satisfying. Restoring the legacy of Starfleet's past from the beginning of Season 3, Star Trek Picard presented a recurring theme: the preservation of Starfleet's past and its legacy. Jean-Luc Picard, now older and more reflective, often reminisced about the era of exploration and camaraderie aboard the Enterprise D. While this reflection might have appeared as mere nostalgia, it planted the idea that Picard's past might have more relevance to the present than anyone realized. The season repeatedly stressed the importance of Starfleet's heritage. This is evident when Admiral Jean-Luc Picard visits the Starfleet Museum, a place dedicated to preserving historical starships and technology. The museum itself is a nod to the golden era of Star Trek, filled with iconic vessels from various series. While the museum was presented as a place of honor and remembrance, it quietly laid the groundwork for the return of the Enterprise D. What went unnoticed by many viewers was how the museum wasn't just a repository for old ships, but hinted at the potential for resurrection. The fact that the museum housed operational ships, including the Enterprise A and Voyager, suggested that these vessels, though retired, were still functional. This detail was easy to overlook, but would prove pivotal when the time came to bring back the Enterprise D. Geordi LaForge's role as a keeper of the past. A significant part of the Enterprise D's return came through the character of Geordi LaForge. Now the curator of the Fleet Museum, Geordi's presence was essential not only in preserving the history of Starfleet, but also in preparing for the Enterprise D's rebirth. Throughout Season 3, Geordi's character arc was largely focused on his role as a father and his complicated relationship with Starfleet. However, his expertise as an engineer remained a critical part of his identity. In one of his conversations with Picard, Geordi alluded to his passion for restoring old starships. This casual mention, like many others, was a subtle nod to his eventual work on the Enterprise D. As a master engineer, Geordi's role as a keeper of the fleet became a central element in the ship's return. His ability to repair and restore starships wasn't just for show, it was the key to ensuring that Picard and the crew would have a functional vessel when they needed it most. Additionally, the introduction of Geordi's daughters, Sydney and Alandra, continued this theme of legacy. Sydney was a pilot serving in Starfleet, while Alandra shared her father's engineering prowess. Together, the LaForge family embodied the notion of passing down Starfleet's legacy, both figuratively and literally. Geordi's daughters, especially Alandra, played a role in the actual repairs that made the Enterprise D operational again. The clue hidden in the Changelings plot, the Changelings, the season's primary antagonists, had an intricate plot to destabilize Starfleet. Much of their plan involved infiltrating Starfleet's infrastructure and manipulating its technology. What was seemingly a story about rogue changelings trying to enact revenge on the Federation contained a crucial subplot about Starfleet's technology and security vulnerabilities. In one particular moment, Picard and his team realized that older Starfleet ships were less vulnerable to changeling interference due to their outdated systems. This may have seemed like a throwaway line in the context of the changeling threat, but it became a crucial point when Picard and his crew needed a ship immune to modern-day infiltration. The idea that the Enterprise D, with its analog systems and older technology, could be the best defense against modern enemies was cleverly embedded into the narrative long before the actual ship appeared on screen. A hero's return, when the moment finally arrived for the Enterprise D to reappear, it wasn't just an emotional punch, it was the culmination of these subtle hints and narrative threads.